to another issue of Video Game Battle with me, Zookstar, where I take two games, compare them with each other, and decide at the end which one is superior, whether they have similarities to each other, or just comparing an original game to its sequel. So, let's bring out tonight's competitors. Crash Bandicoot 2, Cortex Strikes Back, versus Spyro 2, Gateway to Glimmer. Before we begin, you're probably wondering why I'm comparing the PS1 Crash and Spyro games now. Well, this is to replace my reviews on the Crash Bandicoot sequels, because if I did review these games, I would only talk about how improved they are on the original Crash, just like I did with my Spyro Trilogy review. So this is what I'm going to do instead. Besides, like I said before, this is what I really wanted to do for a while. So anyway, I will compare these two games in the following categories: designs, challenge, music, boss battles, and last of all, gameplay. And you know the drill. If you disagree with my final thoughts, no problem. Just remember to respect my decision at the end of the day. So let's start this battle. Let's kick off with the designs. Crash Bandicoot 2 still has jungle and river themed levels from the first game, but now they have brand new level designs like snow levels, sewer levels, space levels, and others more. Unlike the first Crash game, which has many jungle levels, Crash 2 has many snow levels, and I have to say these are some of the best snow levels I've seen in a platformer. Spyro 2's designs also still have fantasy and fairy tale like levels from the first game, but now they have beaches, temples, volcanoes, deserts, floating castles, and many other fantasy-like levels. To be honest, I can't really decide which game has the better designs. Crash 2 does have more detailed and impressive visuals for its time in 1997, but Spyro 2 does have more creative and bright designs. So I'm on a tie on which designs do I like the most, because both games have very neat visuals for the PlayStation 1 standards. So moving on. Now for the challenge. I know I heavily criticised the first Spyro game for being too easy, but Spyro 2 has more challenging and more threatening obstacles in the game. Plus, having to do tasks and side missions to get collectibles is what really makes the challenge better. But the challenge in Spyro 2 is just average at best, whereas Crash Bandicoot 2 has more dangerous and more trickier obstacles than Spyro 2, in particular the death routes. These challenges are extremely tough when you're wanting to get the box gem. Just like in the first Crash game, you can and you will die a lot in this game to get 100%. So in the end, Spyro 2 has proven to be more challenging than its predecessor, but Crash Bandicoot 2's challenge still remains as superior to Spyro 2's, so Crash 2 wins here. Now for the music. Well, there's not much difference from the music in both games from their predecessors, but other than that, the soundtracks in both games are still more catchier than the previous games for sure. Crash 2 still has jungle-like music. But now Crash 2 also has catchy tunes in the snow and sewer levels. I know I criticised the first Crash game for having some forgettable songs, but in my opinion the soundtrack in Crash 2 is more memorable than before. Spyro 2's music is still atmospheric as it was in the original, but there are also some different tunes that are just relaxing to listen to. Here's some of my favourites. So which soundtrack is better? Well, as much as I did enjoy Crash 2's soundtrack than before, I'm still gonna say Spyro's music is superior, mainly because the music in Spyro 2 is more breathtaking than Crash 2's, especially the music of the home worlds. So again, Spyro 2 wins the music category. Moving on. Now for boss battles. I'm just gonna say this. These bosses are much more appealing than the bosses in the previous games. Crash 2 still has you fighting mutated Looney Tunes-like characters, but the characters in the battles are more creative than before. You still fight Ripper Roo from the first game, but now you also fight a Komodo dragon duo named the Komodo Brothers, Tiny, a powerful mutated tiger, and Dr. Engine, Dr. Cortex's new assistant. Spyro 2's bosses on the other hand are very different from those in the original. I'm very glad to see that they've improved a lot because Spyro 1's bosses were utter garbage. You fight a giant dinosaur with a club named Crush, another giant dinosaur with cannons on his back named Gulp, and last of all the main villain of the game, Ripto. So I'm gonna say Spyro 2's bosses are better. Why? Well, even though I like these bosses better than the ones in Crash 1, they aren't that challenging. Ripper Roo was predictably easy, Tiny's battle was just you jumping from platform to platform until Tiny falls off, Engine's battle just had you shooting Womperfoot at him, but the most pathetic boss of all are the Komodo Brothers, because all they do is spin at you and throw swords. Even the final boss with Cortex was disappointing, where you had to hit him 3 times before he escapes the vortex. It was annoying as heck. Spyro 2's bosses are much more epic than any boss battles in the Spyro series, so Spyro 2 wins here again. And now for the final category, gameplay. Let's start off with Crash 2. Crash 2 still shares the same formula of gameplay from the original. Get from point A to point B and smash all the boxes in each level to get a gem. But the new objective of the game is to collect crystals in each level to help you continue the game. You also now have a warp room so you can select any level you want to go first. Once you have collected all 5 crystals, you then use the elevator to go up to the next warp room. Crash still has his jumping and spin move from before, but he now has new moves like slide, crawl, long jump and body slam. You still have levels where you run away from a boulder like before, but there is also a level where you run away from a giant fish's polar bear. Also, remember the level in Crash 1 where you ride a hog? Well, here in Crash 2, you now ride on a polar bear called Polar. The game also has new vehicles to ride like the jetboard and the jetpack, which are also really good additions. The bonus stages from the original also make a comeback, and these stages are less tedious than before, and you aren't forced to go through them. Also, new obstacles are introduced like the nitros. These are small green crates that if you so much as touch them, you're dead. The controls on Crash feel more fluent and more comfortable to play. However, there are some issues I have with the game. First of all is that the game likes to repeat the same levels in each warp room, and not much of them feel different. The only difference is that they're just harder. Also, controlling the jetpack in the space levels was a pain in the neck to get used to. The X, circle, triangle and square buttons are used to move the jetpack. It would have been better if they made the directional buttons to move instead. So that's pretty much Crash 2's gameplay. Now for Spyro 2. Like Crash 2, the gameplay for Spyro 2 still shares the same formula from the original. You still go through portals and homeworlds and collect gems, but the main objective of the game is to obtain talismans from the residents, and later collect orbs and challenges. Once you have a certain number of collectibles, you can go and fight the next boss. And believe me, there are a ton of side missions in the game that will keep you busy for hours. Like Crash, Spyro also has new moves that you can buy from money bags, those being climbing, head bashing, and the best of all, swimming underwater. Usually in platform games, many of them suck swimming underwater, but in Spyro 2, swimming is completely issue free as the controls feel very smooth, the camera is correctly in the right position, and you don't have to worry about drowning. This game also has new power-ups that you can use as long as you have killed enough enemies to access one. Also, after gaining a talisman from each level, there's always a funny cutscene for you to watch that feels rewarding. If I had any criticisms for the game, however, it would be some of the missions being too easy. Plus, beating the game normally makes the game too short, but getting 100% can take a lot of hours, and there isn't that much variety in the game to be honest to keep you going. But that's all for the gameplay. So my final thoughts on which game is better, it would be... Spyro 2 Gateway to Glimmer is in my opinion better than Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back. Why is that? Well, to me, completing Spyro 2 100% feels really rewarding than in Crash 2. I mean, when you defeated Repto and have all the collectibles, you can then go to Dragon's Shores, which really feels like a welcome break from completing the whole game. And when you complete Crash 2 100%, there's nothing else for you to do except replay the levels all the time, which is boring as heck. Plus, Spyro 2 added more things to the table than Crash 2, like the swimming underwater mechanics, which are near flawless, memorable and lovable characters, and so much challenge that I can't name at the top of my head. Crash 2, the only things they added were the new moves and vehicles, and that's it. Still, regardless of the winner, both games are great sequels that are better than their predecessors. Well, that wraps up another video game battle. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a comment, and this is Zookstar1000 aka Mark. We'll see you next time.